Going on, everybody? My name is Z Robinson. Welcome to another Pixelogic stream, ZBrush stream. How you guys doing? Welcome in, welcome in. So we're gonna be doing some really fun stuff today. How's everybody? What's up, Lord? How's it going? Just getting started. I'm thinking something Halloween vibes. I think that might be kind of fun. I'm just gonna get my music going. Boop, 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 boop. And as you guys know, if you guys have any ZBrush related questions, feel free to ask away. As we always will try to go through as many questions as possible, let you guys learn ZBrush just a little bit more, or find something, or maybe solve a problem. So definitely feel free to ask. And again, my name is Ian. Some of you might know me as Ira Sculpts, where we make learning ZBrush and sculpting fun. So let's go ahead and get into it. Right now, Halloween is coming, and that's gonna be awesome. Hello from Chile. Hello, how you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I've been looking at Halloween because it's going on September, and October will be here before we even know it. And something I've been wanting to do is make some 3D printable dioramas for around the house and kind of decorate my own stuff. So I thought, let's go ahead and make like a little graveyard scene. So I pulled up this one little scene here that I feel really inspired by. It looks really cool. It's simplistic in its design. So let's go ahead and just start getting into it. We'll make something, and then if there's time, we'll prep it for 3D print. If not, I'll just turn it into an asset, in which then will be 3D, which will be then downloadable from the newsletter here at ZBrush. So let's go ahead and get into it. Yeah. So let's see. First thing, let's actually just start building the base. So I have a very simplistic model here. We're just going to go ahead and actually hide this. And I'm just going to start out by saving this out. We're going to call this a Halloween graveyard diorama. Diorama! We're not even going to save iterations. We're just going to go for it. And now, if you know, the very first subtool always gets renamed with whatever you name your ZTL, so that's why we're hiding it. And now we're just going to go ahead and insert a cylinder, which we'll have as the base. And I'm just going to go to geometry. We're going to go to edge loop, and we're going to delete loops, which deletes all those supporting edge loops. Deletes all the loops that are not supporting edge loops. The only edge loops that stay are the ones that hold the shape. And let's get something kind of like that. I'm not too worried about the size or anything. And now I'm actually going to take this sphere, and I'm going to go ahead and Control-Shift-D, duplicate. And that's actually we're going to scale this down and kind of make this our ground in which we're going to have our grave in. Yeah, welcome in, welcome in. Hey, Ivan, welcome in. I don't just want to make sure too. I only speak English, just so you guys know, but I also have Google Translate. So if you guys are speaking another language, I try to go through and translate it as best I can, just because I want to make sure I get all the questions. Greetings from Canary Islands. Greetings, welcome, welcome. Happy to have you here. Whoop whoop. Hopefully people like Halloween. So, all right, what I want to do now is we're going to go ahead and clip this, or we're actually going to use the knife curve. And I'm going to go ahead and slice that right at the bottom. And that's going to give us this little shape here. And now we're actually just going to, let's start blocking things out. So we'll build, let's build the coffin first. And let's go with something just a little bit simple. Maybe like a traditional looking coffin. So what we're going to do is go to initialize. I'm going to turn all of these down to 1 and hit Q cube, which will now give me this shape here. And this will be the base of our coffin. And we're going to use ZModeler for the rest of it. So I'm just going to scale this up just so it's coffin size. Yeah, I am making an environment. Yep, we're doing a little diorama, a little Halloween diorama. So it'll be kind of fun. Something different. One thing I really, really like to do is challenge my art in other ways. And so this is definitely one of them where we can make an environment piece. Step away from the character life a bit. What's up, Matt? What's up, Logan? How you doing? Hello, Alex. Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. Hopefully this time slot, too, is a little bit better of a time slot. I was streaming a little bit earlier, but It seems that this actually might work out a little bit better. Yeah, Halloween's right around the corner, so I'm excited. All right, let's go ahead and get some edge loops in here. We're just using ZModeler and dragging some edge loops. So we get something like this. So we already have the shape of a coffin, which is perfect. Now I'm actually going to want to create the lid, and then I'm also going to want to create the inside. Because I'm thinking about maybe we'll take the base skeleton within ZBrush, or maybe we'll just take a skull. We'll sculpt a skull real quick, and then we'll put it in there. Let's see, Oscar, stepping out of my comfort zone in ZBrush is amazing. Absolutely, stepping out is super amazing. Is it possible to have more live streams for hard surface sculpting? Yes, it is, actually. I mean, we're going to be doing a bit of hard surface today because we're doing an environment piece. I'm actually making a coffin. We're making a tombstone. So there's going to be a little bit of hard surface in there. I typically use ZModeler a lot. But I wouldn't classify myself as an expert in hard surface. I kind of do a little bit of everything. So yeah, just thought, just food for thought. But yes, if you have more specific questions about hard surface, let me know and I'll try my best to answer them. Okay, so right now what we're going to do, we're actually going to make the lid. So I'm actually going to hold over this face, go to Q Mesh, polygroup all. I'm going to start dragging this out and I'm going to hold control. That's going to separate this piece for me. I'm going to go ahead and actually hide this piece by going to split hidden. Now my shortcuts here, I have a custom menu, but I'm just going to geometry, going to subtool, subtool, there it is, and then split hidden for that. And now with this, I'm actually going to hover over this edge loop, go to inset, and then we're going to go to polygroup all. And now what I'm going to do is actually do a custom snap all the way up, and that this is actually going to cause a little bit of thickness here. And then with this hovering back over this face, Q mesh, I'm going to push this in. And you can see here I could actually pop a hole if I go all the way back, but we don't want to do that. We just want a little bit. Let's see, how far back can we go? Something like that. Hover over this edge here, insert this edge, boop. And now we have some edge loops. So now we have the base shape of a coffin. Really simple. How can we cut mesh like we do in Maya? You'll have to be a little bit more specific. Like, do you mean like just cutting an edge? Like, yeah, you have to be a little bit more specific. I mean like robot Maxon sci-fi. Yeah, that's something I haven't really played a whole lot with, but I could probably plan some sort of like robot stuff later. The techniques are the same whether you're making a shovel, whether you're making a coffin, whether you're making a giant mech. The techniques are the same. You always want to block out your character shapes first, and then from there you want to be able to kind of isolate your primitives, make sure they look really good, smooth them out, take your time. There's actually really amazing tips by just blocking out your character. You can get a lot done quickly. So, but yeah, we might be able to do something more in the future with that. With this lid here real quick. Let's see. What do I want to do here? I'm actually going to tap Alt just to get this going. So we'll get this lid, and let's actually build something here. I want to actually take the insert primitives, and we're just going to go ahead and kind of stack on a Q cube right here. Like making specific cuts, creating dots inside polygons. Oh, okay. Yeah. We're going to be doing some of that today for sure. Absolutely. Actually, no, I don't want to do it that route. So for example, okay, so if you wanted to make, like, let's say you wanted to make holes in your mesh, for example, creating dots inside polygon, we're going to hover. So ZModeler is your best friend. Now, the way to think about ZModeler is that ZModeler has all your points, your edges, and your faces active all the time. So you can jump between the two rapidly. So it's a little bit different than what you might be used to within Maya. But for example, let's say I wanted to create little holes like right here on this dot. I'm actually going to hover over this point. I'm going to hold the space bar, And then this is going to give me point actions. And then from here, I could just choose something like split. And now I can actually cut into the shape to make this hole here. And if I come on the backside and tap one time, that's going to repeat that action. And now I can hover over this face, go to Q mesh, right? And I can actually pop a hole. So it's really simple to just get a decent shape quickly. And this will also, let's say, for example, back that up for a second. I do a little one and then I do a huge one, right? I could still hover over that face, push through, and that could pop a hole but taper it. But you want to be careful. You see here how it's kind of busting a little bit. So you'd want some supporting edges. So maybe we do something more like this, and then we add like another little hole here, and then another little one there. And then I could push that through. So there are different ways to go about doing it. For cutting your mesh, we actually have a few tools. You can either go really, really simple, where you could do what I did, which is the knife curve by holding Control Shift, and that will literally not only cut, but that will rebuild your geometry. But this is pretty low topology here. So if you wanted to maybe end up like cutting this out, you can either do one of two things. You can either come here, select this with Control Shift, and literally just delete this section. You can hit delete hidden, and then you can actually either bridge these two lines together. So for example, I come here, I can go to bridge, edges, touch this edge, and now I can rebuild this surface. If I don't care about my geometry in any way, shape, or form, I can actually hover over here, go to close holes, and I can actually close that in a convex manner. I can also do it in a concave manner as well, which will do like a little bit of a rebuild. But you see here, it's not the cleanest, but it'll get you what you're looking for. So there's a few ways to go about doing that. If I wanted to create some sort of beveling action in ZBrush, yeah, you wanted to make, you also want to do like little baffles on some edges. So there's a couple ways you could do it. You can, just like any other one, you can either insert your edges. So let's say here, you wanted to have more of just a regular fall off. By hitting D on the keyboard, that's going to give you some sort of dynamic subdivision, which is found over here in geometry, dynamic subdiv. And this will actually allow you to smooth edges by which subdivision level. So you can go 4, you can go to 1. But let's say you want to manually control this, you don't want to rely on dynamic subdivision. Hovering over edge, you could do a bevel this way, and then you can actually just grab and do that complete edge loop. You could do a little bit more, where you just grab, like let's say I just want to bevel this edge in particular. We can actually go to Insert, Single Edge Loop, and let's say I want just this edge to here, so I'm going to create some supporting edge loops, hold Alt and delete that edge, and that bevels that edge for me. And then with a little bit of controlled lines like this, and then hit D, or divide up, it'll actually give you a nice kind of soft fall off. The other way you could do that as well, for example, there's a lot of ways you could do this. Let's say you wanted to actually, for some reason, you wanted this to kind of more pop out and round itself, or you delete this edge and now you want it to round. You can insert multiple edge loops with interactive elevation, start dragging this out, and create bevel shapes on the fly. You can even push it in. So there's a few ways you could go about doing that. The best thing with ZModeler is that you could come in and you could just really start just kind of playing. A lot of these will do exactly what you're looking for at the time that you're doing it. So, and if you notice too, there's a little bit of a line. Anytime I'm facing something, it's telling me the line, the direction. So if I wanted to actually inset this here, I could bevel this edge here, come in, Q mesh, and actually then push this in, and I can inset that action. So I can get some pretty interesting shapes really, really quickly. Then of course too, you have extrude, insert, let's say I want to insert this edge here, insert this. I'm going to hold Alt and create some temporary polygroups, and then I can just go ahead and just extrude, polygroup all, and now I can do that as well. But what makes QMesh awesome is, let's say I want this line right here, and I want these two to snap. This is where QMesh kind of reigns supreme, because then it'll actually snap to that action, creating some beveling right on the side. So I can easily come up and have it snap to that face, or keep going. So you could even push it in and create little holes. So you have a lot of room to play. Yeah. So lots of little things you could do in order to get the shapes that you want. And if you start simple, like the way I usually start doing hard surface is I'll take any mesh, like let's say this mesh in particular, and I want to create a cube. Just initialize Q cube, Q sphere. Let's say this is set at 2, 2, and 2. And then I say Q sphere. This will give me a very basic sphere that most people are used to. Same with grid. I can have a Q grid, and I can start with just a simple plane. So hopefully that answers some questions. But yeah, happy Halloween! So yeah, so there's lots of little stuff you could do. Now we're gonna go ahead and actually make some paneling here. So what I was going to do is actually create 3 little panels that actually ridge up here. So I'm going to go back to QMesh. I'm going to drag this. I want these to be separate so they look like they're separate pieces, even though they'll ultimately intersect. So I'm going to hold Control and bring these out. And this will be where my planks of wood are, almost like they were built and nailed into the coffin, which we could create those little holes with eventually. But they will be on the same surface. So we're actually going to come here, give it a little bit of thickness. Now I'm going to go ahead and mask this section off, invert it, holding Control Tap. I'll tap here on this location and bring this in just a little bit. And then I'm actually going to squeeze that in just a smidget for a little bit of depth. We'll push that in just for some intersection. And we'll have this looking shape right there. Now let's place this in our scene. Now this is going to be kind of buried a little bit, so oops, I have this upside down for some reason. Let's rotate that around. We'll do a little bit of an offset like that. Seems to be about the right size. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll build like a little skeleton or something on the inside. That could be kind of fun. And I'm going to go to Subtool, and let's actually put this in its own folder. So Control F. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up this gizmo. This is a really cool trick. Tap here and select only these items. And then if I hit Control F, it's going to ask me if I want to put these subtools in its folder. Say yes, and then we'll call this Coffin. And now all of that resides together, so you don't have to do individual. You don't have to Control F and then drag. And now these are all in the same one. And I'm actually going to purposely take these and bury it just slightly underneath. Maybe we'll push it forward because I'm going to want a little bit of maybe like a cross coming up here. Now I have this. Let's go to transparency. Select this guy right here. And I'm going to now create a mask shape like this. Now this mesh is a little funky actually, so let's fix that. I'm going to actually just go ahead and Dynamesh it so I can get the shape that I want. So let's go to Geometry, Dynamesh, and let's Dynamesh it at, let's start with 64 resolution. Add a blur of 2, which will give me something a little bit small. There you go, that's going to be a little bit better. Invert that. I'm going to mask the bottom off just to make sure. And then we're going to push this in. Something like that. Now let's re-Dynamesh that, rebuild it. And this will give me a little bit of what I want. Now, if we want this to be perfect, I'm going to go ahead and mirror and weld this. So Geometry, Modify Topology, Mirror and Weld on the X. That'll make sure that it's perfectly center. And then we'll do a little bit of smoothing. And let's actually make this a bit smaller so we have just the grave here. Squeeze that in. There we go. So already having a little something that we want. Let's go ahead and save. And let's build the cross next. And we're going to do the build this cross very similar, where I'm going to go to Subtool, and I'm going to add just any shape. It doesn't matter. Literally, I'm going to add this little sweep thing. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to Initialize, and then back to QCube, just like this. And this is what we'll build our cross in. And we're going to do some fun stuff with the cross. It won't be just like basic and boring. We'll do something very cool, like something like this. So we're going to mirror and weld it to get our center line. Let's stretch it out. Let's get something like this. There we go. And now from here, let's actually get the shape that we're looking for. So Z modeler again, which you already have, cover the edge loop. We're going to insert just single edges at this point. Kind of find where this cross will lie. X for symmetry, Control App, and then drag that part out, which will give us the basic shape that we want. Now this is where we're going to have a little bit of fun. So this is where we're going to do a little bit of discovery here. So I'm actually going to drag this out just a little bit more, giving me another edge loop. Same here, Control App and drag this out. But now I'm going to actually come in here, hover over the edge and do multiple edge loop. And this is where we can do some really cool stuff. We can do a masking here where we come in and we actually push this in. Or what we could do is we can hover over that same edge. Let's do our interactive multi-edges. And we can kind of push this in, giving us this kind of shape. What's up, Travis? Cheers. And then if I tap this again and tap this again, it keeps, now I'm getting this really interesting shape here. I'm going to mask this and actually use slice curve and create another edge loop and then tap here. And so you see we can get different shapes. Now this one's a little bit bigger, so maybe we'll scale that in just a little bit like that. So now we have something just slightly more interesting than originally. And maybe we actually should flare these edges out. Let's see. Mask this. Maybe we'll just flare this out a little bit. Yeah, I like that. That's cool. Go ahead and do something like that. Hey, what's up, dude? Literally working on a coffin sculpt concept right now. Nice, nice. That is super awesome. Yeah, it's Halloween, man. It's Halloween. We gotta get some fun stuff happening, right? Here we go. Here we go. Perfect. Yeah, I've been looking around my house and saying, what can I possibly add to my decoration of stuff? Now here's like, so we're going to do some custom beveling, right? So first thing is we want all these edges. And then this is where I'm going to actually add in my own edge loop. This is how I like to do bevels. And then like to come here, Alt Tab and delete if I wanted to just have this edge. Like let's say I don't want the whole thing beveled. Because if I were to do beveling right now, if I were to come here, go to bevel, go complete loop, right, it'll bevel this, and that's pretty cool. That's fine. But it's probably not what I'm looking for. And yes, you can do partial as well, so I could do partial. But you see here, it's going to actually stop at those points. But if I just want this edge itself to actually be beveled, then I'll come up here and add some supporting edge loops, Alt, and then delete, and now I get this effect. And this is just a little bit more of what I'm looking for. Give me a little bit more. And then when I hit D for dynamic, I'm getting some natural fall off. That's actually pretty nice. Now I will come in here, and I think maybe for the sake of design, I'm actually coming here. Let's see. Let's kind of play around for a little bit. Let's go interactive. Let's not do that. Doop, 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 doop. We're just going to go ahead and add just a couple shapes here. I want this to flare out a little bit. Yeah. Nah, that breaks it. I don't want that. Okay. That's okay. We'll pull this out just a little bit. How do you deal with shrinking happening when doing subdivisions? So you're always going to get a little bit of shrinking when you do subdivision. That's kind of natural because everything's smooth. But if you want something like super solid, you could do it two ways. You could do it the way I'm kind of doing it, which is having having support loops closest to the edge. So here's a good example. Let's actually pull up. I'm just going to insert here just real quick a cube. And let's just focus on the cube for a second. So when you have dynamic, you're always going to, or you apply subdivisions, you're always going to have a little bit of shrinking. You can just go to geometry and turn off the smooth button, and then when you divide, it stays and holds its shape perfectly. So there's no shrinking in this case. This is probably how you would want to do it. However, this doesn't always work for, let's say, something like a low-res sphere. If I have a low-res sphere, and you see all these, I can see all these faces. If I go to geometry, turn off smoothing, and start dividing, I am getting subdivisions, right? You can see if I look at the wireframe, they're there. But the problem is that it's not smoothing anything, and so I'm still getting this kind of jaggy, I can see all the faces look. And so if you don't want that, but you do want to be able to control your shape without a lot of shrinking, this is where having your edge loop controls matter. So if I were to turn on D for dynamic and cover an edge and just start applying a single edge, notice that as I'm dragging this edge loop up, it's actually preventing that from shrinking in that direction. And I would do the exact same thing. And then if I were to go ahead and turn off dynamic smoothing, you'd see here that I actually have an edge near this one, an edge on top of an edge. So here, if I were to pull this all the way up and have this all the way here, these are now supporting this edge loop. So the fall off becomes minimal. So then the shrinking is also negated as well. So I can come really, really close and then start to smooth that down. And now I'm adding subdivisions, but the shrinking, again, is not happening. So here's no subdivisions, but with those supporting edge loops. And now I can go ahead and start adding the subdivs. And you can see I have subdivisions, but those lines there, they're supporting that edge. So anytime you hear me say supporting edge loops, that's really what I'm talking about. It helps prevent the shrinking. But as you subdivide a shape with minimal edge loops, there's shrinking is just always going to occur because it's trying to then relax and smooth and warp that shape. So either you turn off smoothing or you apply the smoothing or you apply the edge loop supports to mitigate that as much as possible. My opinion, do companies look for artists that are specialized in one area of people, or people that can be able to? Sorry, let me wow, I can't speak. In my opinion, do companies look for artists that are specialized in one area, or do people, or do they look in like different amount of areas? As I butchered that question, I do apologize for that. Apparently, I lost the ability to speak. So it depends on what you're going for. More specifically, I come from the toy world, so they look for artists that can do more than just one thing. If you look at any statue that is out there, there's a little bit of everything. There's character design, there's environments, there's hard surface. Because just think, like, let's take Wonder Woman for example. If you have Wonder Woman, the idea that she's only organic is actually just non-existent because she has a shield, she has rough armor. So you have to know a little bit of hard surface to be able to even make her clothing, right? So you have to know a little bit of everything, especially in the toy world. Now, that doesn't mean that if you specialize in character design, for example, or you professionalize in an environment, that you won't get hired. It's just the more you do, especially in toys, the better chance you have of being hired because you showcase that you have a lot of different skills, that you're not super focused on one. However, there are jobs like texture artists where all they do is texture. So it is very dependent on what you're actually trying to achieve and what you want to get out of it. So it does depend. However, like I said, at the end of the day, you know, if you're even just specializing, let's say, in just character design, it's not going to hurt for you to learn other stuff too. Like In fact, I encourage and implore anyone to come in and start learning a little bit more than what they're used to. It's only going to benefit you in the long run. There's no harm in it. But if you would like to specialize, there's also no harm in that as well. It just might be a little bit harder to nail your first job. That's why junior level or 3D generalist jobs exist, because it's a good way to get into the industry, get your feet wet with things that maybe you don't really know, or that you would like to. As Siri, Siri's just defining that for me. So yeah. Anyway, so at the end of the day, it really is just like, don't be afraid to learn new things. Get out there and try, but it just depends on the job you're going for. So I know it's not a super solid answer, but I am somebody specifically who wanted to learn just how to sculpt, and it happened to really benefit me to get into toys because that's what they were looking for. So again, it does depend, but whatever you're striving for, definitely push towards that, because you'll just get there. Put it out in the ether, should be fine. Hey, Keo, how you doing? I forgive me so many questions. Have you? No, that's exactly what I'm here for, guys. I just want to let you know this time is I'm here for you guys to answer questions. Artistry, ZBrush, even student Cinema 4D. I'm working on a few different ways to incorporate my ZBrush pipeline into Cinema 4D. So please feel free to ask these questions. That's exactly what I'm here for, and I personally love it. So I'm looking at this design. Actually, as we're talking about designing, something I would like to do is kind of actually create a little bit of filigree here. So I'm going to go to inset, and I'm actually going to inset this to give me a secondary loop. And then I'm going to go ahead and Q-mesh this piece out. But I'm going to push this in and tap Alt a couple times so it gives me something like this. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to go ahead and hold Shift. Nope. There we go. I'm going to create temporary right here, temporary polygroups. Hold Shift just to bring this out just a smidget, because I'm going to taper this. And the way I taper is I mask it off. I set my gizmo to the center, and then I just taper this down. And what might be really, really cool, actually, this is what I was thinking about as we were talking, is I'm going to come here to this edge, multiple edge loops with interactive elevation, because I think this shape would be really cool. Yeah, there we go. That matches the design super beautifully. Mirror and weld on the Z-axis to get both at the same time. And then I'm actually going to center this, and then we're going to kind of scale this up forward just a little bit. Give it a little bit of thickness. I do want to 3D print this. And then we can actually set this up here, and we'll finish up the tombstone. For game industry and films. For game industry and films, I'm not the proper person to talk about it, only because I haven't worked in the game industry, but I have made models for animation. And what you want to be able to do, it might behoove you actually to focus in on a certain aspect, because those can be very specific, but it helps you to understand the other jobs too. So there's a lot of character artists out there, but you have character art, environment art, animation, rigging, lighting, texturing. You have a lot of fields. So learn the whole pipeline. I implore you to learn the whole pipeline. Once the pipeline becomes more comfortable and you understand the pipeline, see what interests you, the thing that you enjoy doing the most. Like, let's say you do enjoy building cabins in the woods and you like these little diorama scenes, which I like to do for fun, then that's something you should encourage. I got into doing toys, so I covered a wide range of everything, and I needed to do everything. But what was neat is I only needed to focus on sculpting more so than maybe Substance Painter or real-time rendering. Although I did take the time to learn all that, I just never fell into that industry. And that industry is ever changing. So the more you get into games and films, the more you just kind of want to make sure you understand the process and how it is from design all the way down so that your models can get rigged. but you know, figure out where in that pipeline you really enjoy being, and then that's what you should focus on. The problem I have is even after the subdivisions, the subtool shrinks a bit compared of what it was before. Also, I'm working on a character body. Yes, you're always going to get a little bit of shrinking. What you can do though is, well, you deleted subdivision levels. May I ask why you deleted subdivision levels? Because usually, what you're working with subdivisions, you don't want to get rid of those subdivision levels. That's kind of what Dynamesh is for. Dynamesh is there for you to discover your shapes, but once you're ready to get those shapes going and you go into subdivisions, the geometry should be built cleanly enough that the subdivisions only help support the actual texturing. But you're always going to get a little bit of shrinking. You're never going to, I don't think there's a way to prevent that, again, without going here and just hitting this, turning the smooth off and then subdividing. But even then, I don't really recommend doing that. It shrinks slightly, but you can control how it shrinks. Hey, Leonard. Yes, it's great to be here. Stickles, what's happening? Hello from Bangladesh. Welcome. Abu, welcome. Yep, totally agree. Okay, cool. All right, let's go ahead and continue these shapes. See, like here, for example, going on that shrinking question. So like right here, I don't want this actually to round off this way. So this is how I can prevent it. Again, I'm just going to come in here, add my edge loops. I'm going to push this down. I really don't want that to be shrinking as much as it is. And if we go solo, we'll come out on the inside here. You know, I'll add a little bit of edge loops here and some edge loops here. Again, prevents it from shrinking so much, gives me a little bit more control, but it doesn't stop it from shrinking. 5 years now, the 3D software will be totally different. It's seriously, it really will. It will be super different. Okay. Let's come here on the bottom, and I'm actually going to grab a... Yeah, let's grab our IMM primitives, and I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that I'm right in the middle. There we go. Now I'm going to turn off dynamic subdivision. I'm going to move this forward, kind of shrink this up a little bit. And we're going to make a little bit more of a official tombstone, and I'm just going to work off of this. Now, I could separate these two, but eventually they'll be welded together anyway, which is fine, so I'm not really worried about that so much. But what we will do is from here, I'm actually going to hold over, let's see, let's get our Z modeler. We'll hover over this edge. We're going to change its poly group. Tapping Alt while holding down will give me something a little bit different. Of course, I chose the most the closest polygroup for that. What you want to make sure is that when you have a bunch of polygroups, that when you're bringing something out, that you are not affecting anything else. So it's always encouraging to hover over edge and then tap Alt until you find something that works for you. There we go. Now we have this shape here, which is good. Now, should we do one step or two step? That's a good question. Here, let's do this. Let's go to polygroups, auto groups, select this mask. I'm going to shrink this up just a little bit. Okay, we're going to delete this. Should we delete this edge loop? No, let's leave that edge loop there. It's actually, you know, let's do here. This is what we're going to do. Make this a little bit bigger. Actually add in insert. Let's add this edge right here. Grab this polygroup. Build this back out with not extrude. We'll just go Q mesh. Perfect. Like that. There we go. Now I'm going to mask this section off. I'm just going to drag this down. And let's see how that, yeah, that's actually, that fits pretty nicely. I like that. Now this ground is too round, so we're going to fix that here in a second. Man, every time you do better, thanks, man. Appreciate it. ZBottler is one of my new favorite tools, to be honest. It's very fast, it's very effective, and quite frankly, I don't think I can live without it these days. Look at that. Tap that, tap that. Beautiful. Yes. 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 Okay. And actually, we're going to want to build up this ground a little bit, so we use some clay buildup to give us a little bit of structure. I'm also thinking we're going to have some dirt on the side of this. So you know what, maybe let's break. Right now we have it too symmetrical for what it is. So we're going to want to break it up, but I don't want to break the design up too much. So what we can do, first things first, we can actually come here, and I can actually grab this section like this, right? This is dynameshed, so I'm not too worried about. Maybe take this off here. And actually, should we move it? No, you know what? Let's just add let's add some asymmetry with a little bit of dirt and stuff here. So let's actually fix this part. I'll start making this look a little bit more like dirt. So we'll keep it symmetrical for now, but we'll build up a little bit of clay buildup. Yeah. There we go. Can you tell us what average salary ZBrush artist makes? That greatly depends. Unfortunately, I can't tell you that because it depends on what you're doing with ZBrush. Like I teach ZBrush, so I'm a ZBrush artist who teaches it, so my salary is different than somebody who might be in a production pipeline. But what I do always encourage everyone do is that wherever you are, because also too, if I tell you a number now, right, and this is something that I think is super important to talk about. If I tell you this number now, let's say you're in France, okay? You're in France, and I tell you my Los Angeles, California salary. That's not going to compare or compute. It doesn't make sense because how wages are disparate in other countries. It's going to depend. It's not going to be the same. But what I can encourage is that what you do is when you're looking for what somebody who operates in ZBrush, like let's say a character artist, go to Google or whatever your web browser is, and go to companies like in the U.S. There's one called Glassdoor, and Glassdoor actually will tell you. Oh, I need to turn Dynamesh on. Will tell you what an average, what that job title makes on average within your area. And that will give you a better clue. So if you're freelancing, for example, that might be a great way to kind of figure out what your freelance fees would be. If you're looking for studio work, look at all the studios around you and then go to something like Glassdoor to figure out what the different wages are. That will give you a much better indication. But telling you a salary, like it doesn't make sense because you're probably not in Los Angeles, California, so that's going to be a little bit different. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So it's not more of like me dodging the question. It's more of me just being honest with, I had to do it too when I was freelancing, especially during the pandemic. I had to figure out what my rates were, and believe you me, that was not super easy of a feat to do. But I ended up just kind of figuring it out. So just food for thought. We're going to call this the ground. And we're actually going to go ahead. This is the base. All about that base. So I'm going to put it at the bottom and call this base. And then now we're going to insert a new sphere. And this will be our dirt. And the way I'm going to do this dirt, actually, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to chop this up just a little bit. So I'm going to go knife curve, chop the top, chop the bottom. Boop. Come here, turn on symmetry. I'm going to chop the sides and give me something a little bit like this. Yes, I'm kind of making a square. I could have just made a square, but the reason why I'm doing this actually is I'm actually going to want this mound. So let's come here, let's soften that, and let's actually kind of scale this up a little bit. Actually, let's not even bother with that. That's too technical. It doesn't even matter. Now that I have this shape, let's go to Dynamesh. And then let's kind of really smooth this down. I want this low, so we're even going to go like 32. And this will be the kind of dirt shape. Go to move, start bringing this up. We're going to break symmetry. And this will be kind of the dirt that's on the side. We may actually need to like, we may actually need to shrink a few things to make all this fit or scale a few things up. I think we need to shrink some stuff, make some room for this dirt. Hey, MJ Scults, what's up? What kind of platforms did I use for freelance? The platforms I use for freelance, honestly, social media was my best friend. I actually ended up just reaching out to people on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the basics. And then I networked with a lot of people. And then I also live streamed a lot, which later then I got picked up by ZBrush Live, which was awesome. And that ended up helping me a lot too. Okay, we're gonna scale this down just a little bit. Rebuild that surface. Okay, yeah, that's looking a little bit better. Push this up a little bit now. This gives us some room here. Add some dirt. It's not looking like dirt much, but it will soon enough. Down. Use some clay buildup. And we'll just give it a little bit of roughness. That's really low now. So that's actually, I want it to hold some shape. So we'll go 128 for now. And I don't need all these different poly groups. So I'm just going to go ahead and Control W that. I've only been streaming for almost under an hour. So let's actually save this. Never used ZModeler. Gonna have to try that. Yeah, absolutely. Would you say you build all your hard surface models in ZBrush, or do you use standard DCC software like Maya, Max, etc.? I actually build a good chunk of them in ZBrush. Once I learned ZModeler, I haven't actually stepped away from that. I could go into another software and build it that way, but it doesn't, like, you're building basic shapes and then you're moving into ZBrush. You could build those same basic shapes very, very quickly. It just depends on your workflow. There's nothing wrong with that. So for me, it just makes sense to stay in ZBrush, just because I'm used to it. I can do it faster. I'm more comfortable in there. So I typically would stay in ZBrush for that. What is the name of this symbol? Well, the cross, that's just the cross. So would you, let's see, I want to make sure I'm not missing a question. Can you tell what's the, oh no, answer that. Great, perfect. Have you encountered random crashes using the knife brush? It happens to me from time to time, and I haven't been able to figure out why. It's a great question, actually, and I can solve it for you. I can actually really solve that for you. Okay, so this is highly replicatable. The thing with the knife brush, okay, and this is something to kind of note. The knife brush right here, you want to make sure that your topology is kind of is clean enough. There's no holes or anything like that. When you make a cut, what is happening is it's deleting that surface, and then it has to try to restitch to close that hole for you. If you happen to cut over the same cut, like let's say you make a cut and you get something like this, and then you try to cut over that cut again, that could cause a crash because then it doesn't know how to rebuild it, and it almost confuses the brush. So the best thing to do is make sure that when you are doing, let's say, Dynamesh, for example, and let's say you come in here and you cut a hole like this, and then you use inflate, and then you inflate this. If you try to knife cut this actually might cause a crash because there's not a whole lot there. So you'd want to make sure you rebuild that first before you try to perform that cut. So that's number one, is that the mesh itself may not be as clean as you want it to be. So kind of make sure that there's no holes or flip normals in there, so that you don't have to worry about it not understanding what's happening. Because again, the whole process is it deletes the mesh and then it tries to restitch it. That restitching process, once it cuts and then tries to restitch, that's where the errors can occur. So make sure your mesh is at least watertight or clean enough to perform that cut. And if you make a cut, and this happened to me too, if you make a cut and it doesn't cut and you try to cut again, that also could cause a crash. If you try to make a knife curve cut and it does not cut, let's say you do something, of course, my mesh is actually, oh, that was actually good. Let's say you do something like that, and then you see here how it's attempted to make the cut, but I didn't finish it, and then I tried to cut again. That could also cause a crash as well. So you want to make sure that when you perform like the lasso brush that you're actually making a fully clean cut. I mean, it's designed to do really, really ridiculous cuts, but there are limits to everything, just as in life. So you want to make sure that if you are doing these crazy cuts, that your mesh is actually fairly clean, and that should solve a lot of those problems. What is the name of this symbol? This symbol in particular, we just call this a cross in the U.S. That's it. They're used a lot in grave tombstones here around the United States. And I mean, there's no purposeful religious affiliation to this other than it's just a grave site and it's a common sighting here. Very cool, creepy Halloween theme. Yeah, say just in case what's happening. So hopefully I answered your question to Boo. Yeah, we just call it a cross. Do you use Maya for Retopo, UV, or do it all in ZBrush? Actually, I've been moving my workflow a lot to do that stuff in Cinema 4D. I have done a lot of retopoing and UVs in ZBrush. A lot of what I do is Z-Sphere. So say if I wanted to Z-Sphere retopo this, well, that's not a good example. Okay, let's actually just take this mound of dirt. This little mound of dirt is getting a lot of love today. So let's say I wanted to retopo this. I would actually go ahead and copy this, paste it, maybe something in here, and then with solo turned off, I then would come in and use Z-Sphere retopo. So I would add a Z-Sphere, and then I would move this around. Q allows me to draw a new one out, but I'm not trying to do rigs. I'm just trying to scale. So I'm going to hit E to rescale this. I tend to stick this in the middle of wherever that is at. And then from here, next what we'd end up doing is, where are we? It's not Z sketch. No, come on. Nope, where are you? Oh my stars. Oh, nope, topology. There we go. I knew it was there. And then edit topology. So we'll be working on here. Select topo. Come on. Oh my gosh. Anyway, it has been a minute. Don't mind me. I haven't done this in a while. Let's see. Edit. Select topo. Nope. Come on. Draw. There it is. Draw. Boop, boop. There we go. Had to hit Q. Hit Q, guys. Okay. So I have Q. Now I can start drawing it out. And now from here, wherever these arrows are pointing, that's actually going to help you out. So I just start drawing this out. Boop. And I could just literally start retopoing this out. If I hit A, that'll actually give me a preview, but this is Dynamesh. I want to go to Adaptive Skin, turn down Dynamesh, turn off preview, turn on preview, and this will actually give me this. Turn Destiny down to 1, which will give me this clean here. I apologize for the lagginess I am at today. But now I could just come in here and start drawing out my retopology. Make a mistake, I can go ahead and actually just hit Control Z. Again, just tapping over here. And I can really get this very fast. And if I don't like that, yep, come in there, tap that. Come here. If I have something like this where I'm not tapping, I go ahead and tap out here one time, click here, grab, tap, tap. Hit A to check it. Come in here. So really fast. You could do this fairly fast. Again, tap out here to just rebuild. And you could get something fairly quickly. Come here. Boom, boom. I feel sluggish today. I think I'm just tired. Start this point here. Come in. 1, 2, 3. Boom. And then once I'm done with this, let's say I like this. I go ahead, hit A. And now I have this guy right here, right? And then I would just go ahead and make adaptive skin, and now that's my topology all by itself. Now what's cool about this is that if I want to come back to this, I come back to the second subtool. I have my main one I broke off. I can come back in here, and I can actually tap out here and then say like, yeah, this one, and then tap, come here, boom, 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 boom. So really simple. This is the way I tend to do it now. And I like it. It's fast. It's a little bit old school though. But you're in the ArcViz business, mostly working with 3ds Max, but once I use ZModeler, man, now I want to do every prop with it. It's so amazing and powerful. Flex. It is, actually, and that's the really cool part. So, like, you know, for example, if you, since you know, especially if you have any type of, you know, when you're working with hard surface models a lot and you want clean topology, like, you know, if you build it with ZModeler or any application, well, you know, you're not really going to really need to do a whole lot of retopology once something is built. So if you build it well, it can benefit you. So yeah, I say go ahead. I build most of my props that way. Just introduce it, Oscar, and then just submit it for just submit it for work. That makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. Does this way of retopo work with baking, normals, etc.? Yes. Yeah. The whole process of retopoing is that you're just building a clean mesh on top of whatever mesh you have. So if you understand the retopo flow, like for example, this is an environment piece. There's really no animation that's going to occur to this piece. Because of that reason alone, there's not going to be any need for deformation lines. Nothing's going to be bending because this is all hard surface. So because of that reason, I'm not going to need to really do a whole lot of, you know, figuring out craziness with deformation lines. All I'm really going to need to do is just make sure that my seams are controlled, and you can split that with, if you do it in ZBrush, you could split a lot of that with polygroups. But again, you know, when working on characters, the topology really is super important. But for environment, a buddy of mine who's in environment work, sometimes he'll just cheat it. He'll just go to he'll just do ZBrush, and then he'll submit it, and they like it. But I always encourage to stick with the workflow that you're employed to do, but it can be done in ZBrush. In fact, if you really want to see some really cool stuff, actually, I think in 2019, no, maybe a little bit. I know in 2021, geez, I'm gonna, before I even start quoting years, we actually had its software. I'm gonna look it up real quick. ZBrush Summit. We had its software. They do so much of their work, hard surface and topology, all that stuff in ZBrush. ZBrush Summit, it's software. I want to say it was 2021. They had a 2021 and a 2016 presentation. If you really want to see a game company take ZBrush and use that primarily as their workflow, like the entire game was built using ZBrush, this is definitely the summit for you. So definitely check that out. Yeah, once you retopo your work, and then you start subdividing, or make it so that you can subdivide, and then from there you have a nice clean surface on the bottom, and then you could just bake from high to low. No, Chris, you're good. You're good. We're going till noon, buddy. You're good. Office. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I've been modeling for about 7 years. I teach ZBrush for a living. I have a lot of fun doing it. Yeah, life is pretty good. So thank you, man. Okay, let's actually, before we get into, I want to build a vampire skull, but it's going to be kind of stylized. So what I want to do actually is let's build up a little bit of topology. So let's go 128 resolution. I want to build up just a little bit of asymmetry here. So we're just using the clay buildup. Pardon me. And we're just going to get just a little bit of asymmetry built here in the surface. We're going to do a little bit of, we'll do all of our texture work towards the end, making it look a little bit more like dirt. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and kind of come in here and get just a little bit of this built up. There we go. And the goal here is to 3D print this, by the way. Now, we were talking about ways to not smooth a mesh. And actually, there's another way that I would like to showcase within ZBrush, and the way to do that, because I'm realizing that when I hit D, this is too smooth for me, and I don't like that. And I don't really want to spend time to build more edge loops. So another way you can do it is actually if you go to polygroups and group by normals, you're going to get something like this. And then what you can do is actually go to geometry, crease polygroups, we joke saying Paul Gabries because his name also is PG. But crease polygroups and take our crease level, and you can either leave that all the way up to subdivision level 15, which is ridiculously high. I don't think anyone's ever really gone that high. But I like to do crease level of 3 or 2. Let's go 3. What this will do is this will keep my edges nice and solid up until I surpass subdivision level 3. Then it's going to start smoothing a little bit. And now, let's make sure I don't have dynamic turned on. Now I have subdivision level 4 or 5, and I'm getting nice hard edges with a little bit of fall off. So that's another way to keep things solid, and it didn't shrink that much. So that's another way. So now this actually has subdivisions, and we're actually going to cause a little bit of texturing with some thick skin on this a little bit later. Is that too thin? Is that too thin? Actually, let's do this. This might be a little thin. I'm actually going to thicken that up a little bit. There we go. That might be a little bit better. Let's do that right there. Same thing. Kind of just give it a little bit of thickness. There we go. That might be a bit better. Something I was noticing. Same thing here. Let's actually make sure that's masked off. Let's come here. Let's add a little bit of thickness. There we go. Okay. So now when I smooth that down, that actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that should be plenty. Perfect. Yeah, that'll work out well. Okay. Yeah, that summit stream was awesome, right? Yeah. Yeah, I brought some scan data of a head and scan a while back, and wanted to know if you have a quick way to auto polygroup, close holes, and decimate, keeping the details as much as possible. Chris, yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I'm going to point you to another YouTube video that we did in 2020. We're going to call it ZBrush scan. I've done a little bit of scan data cleanup before. What I really recommend is that you focus on being able to project details back. Let me see, where can I find that real fast? But we had one of our artists come on and actually showcase a good way to do that. He was working with a jacket, but the techniques are the same. Let me see if I can find it real fast. I don't want it to get buried. Aha, here it is. Working with scan data and dynamic cloth. Okay, so this actually would be really, really helpful for you because the way you're going to go about doing it, these techniques are going to really work out for you. So I would check that out, but yeah, you're going to want to rely on project history. You want to just make sure, that the way I do it, I typically work with, dynameshing at a very high resolution, projecting any details that might need to be projected back. It's a very delicate process. So I would definitely, what you could do, here's something you could do too. If you needed to close a hole, for example, you could try this maybe. Let's go to save. I'm going to go ahead and save this real quick. Let's actually go to the sphere. And what I'm going to do, actually, let's come here real fast. Let's take our lovely, this little mound of dirt has been really treating us well today. I'm going to go ahead and actually, let's going to move this guy just a little bit out the way. I'm going to go ahead and grab the select lasso, say, yep. Okay, I'm going to grab this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just delete hidden for a second. Boop. Okay, so let's say you have this hole. Let's say this is the neck of your scan, and you want to close this off really, really quickly. That's the right way. Boop, boop. Knife curve it. Check this out. No closed holes. No hidden stuff. Just come in here, knife curve it. Closes the holes. You cut, so you're taking out all of this jagginess here. You're going below that surface, okay, just slightly below it, and clip it. and that will help rebuild. That might be a really good approach, actually, if you have a hole, like let's say underneath the neck or something like that. That would be the first way I would do it. So I would say try that. Wait, I can hotkey these functions in ZModeler. Um, you can hotkey certain things like brushes. You can hotkey certain functions, like if you wanted to, for example, not everything is hotkeyable. Buttons, nothing with a slider can be hotkeyed unless you have the slider, like S is obviously a slider, but it depends on what you're wanting to hotkey. ZBrush has a lot of hotkeys built in, but like for example, like I don't think you would want to like hotkey an insert or anything. So yeah, I would just look at that video and then see if that helps you out. Very cool. Okay. Boop boop. This little mound of dirt has gotten a lot of love today. Okay, let's get a skull going on here because now we have some dirt. We have a little bit of buildup. And then let's make a vampire skull. I think that'd be really cool. Really tie it in with the Halloween vibes here. So we have our coffin, we have our ground. I'm actually going to go ahead and put this also, and we'll call this just our basic cross here, just so that it's separated. And if I want to add anything to it, cool. Afternoon, Lewis. Afternoon in Brazil. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Always happy to have you here. Let's get a stylized skull happening really, really quickly. So what we're going to do now is, let's actually put it, I don't know. It doesn't matter where we put it. Right now, let's just go down at the bottom of the base, all about that base. We're going to insert a sphere, and now we're going to start building up a stylized skull. So, and I actually have some reference of a couple skulls that I really liked. It's always good to have some reference. There we go. And now I'm just going to use Dynamesh. Delete. And then now we're going to go ahead, X, and I'm going to start planing this thing out. Very, very cool. Just you can use clay buildup. Literally just going to start smashing this clay around until I get something that I like. Okay, Dynameshing that. There we go. Actually, it's a little too high, so 164. There we go. Just going to go ahead and start beating this clay up. Use the sculpt to Beetlejuice vampire skull. That would be pretty cool. I think we're going to stay away from IP today, but that would be pretty cool. Yeah. Smooth this down. All right, let's get the move brush. There we go. Just start. We're going to go kind of ridiculous with this. Going to push this in just a bit. This is a good challenge too if you guys want to practice making your shapes. Make a skull in like 10, 20 minutes. Just give yourself a little something, something to do. Be surprised how far you can get. I'm going to start making his little nose hole. Now he's going to be 3D printed, right? So he's going to be pretty small. I'm already getting to the point where, boom. Let's give him a big old orbit. Go, a little bit of a bridge. Move brush is our best friend. So it's like this knife brush. Just gonna clip down here at the bottom just for a second. Just go ahead and Dynamesh that. There we go. Now because he's a vampire, We want this 3D printable, but we do want a little bit of defining that jaw. Go. Down. Get a little bit of roundness happening here. You got this nice plane change that occurs. I'll show you a little bit of a Dynamesh trick here on when I work on anything stylized. Now the base, the back of the base, let's get that a little bit wide, smooth that down. A bit of, let's actually take the clay brush. Clay brush will be kind of nice. There we go. 3D printable, so I'm not going to actually put that proper hole there. But let's say we're starting to get what we like here. And now I want to actually turn around and kind of make this a little bit more stylistic. Then the thing I'm going to do actually is turn to Dynamesh Polish and turn blur off. And we went from this to this. Now we can actually finesse this a little bit. Here like such. I'm going to take the damn standard. I'm going to start edging out some of the stuff that needs to. Give it a little bit of refinement. And again, just take that blur and turn that blur off. There we go. Bit of clay. Whee! Now let's get the teeth in here. This will be simple enough. We're just going to go ahead and actually start edging out where some of this would be. And we're not going we're not going super realistic here, so we're just getting something that will be fun and kind of in the way. So let's go ahead and do something like this. There we go. Now here, we're just going to go ahead and actually start carving in where these teeth would be. Get those gum connections. The gum connections. I said it, and then I thought, for some reason, thought love connection. I don't even know. I don't even know. Okay, check this out. So I actually want these cuts to be a little bit deeper than what they are currently, right? But obviously, Dynameshing wipes that away, and I don't want to redo it. So I'm going to go back in history until I start making the first cut. Something like that. I'm going to actually control tap that history spot, and then now I'm going to bring it back forward, and then we're going to adjust last. And actually, nope, start. Come back up here to this one. And now adjust last, I can actually push in a good chunk of that. And I can refine any other edge that I would like. Let's go higher resolution. Let's say 128 times 2, so 264. There we go. A little bit better. Let's get rid of that history state. We don't need it anymore. Now we can just refine the rest of the way. Now, of course, he's a vampire. So we're going to go to brush, curve, AccuCurve. Pull those teeth out. Are those the right ones? They are today. Those be the right ones today, they say. And now we go ahead and refine these a little bit more. Not necessarily. It's not necessarily about the amount of vertices. It's the resolution based on the size of the object and the viewport. So it's not an exact count. No, no. It's more of just like, you know, just literally think of it as resolution. It's more of like, all right, this is really low quality. Because here, we'll do this real fast. So I have the skull here. So it's dependent on the size of the object. So if I were to, so we have 264. We're actually going to go ahead. I just saved it. Let's mark our history real fast. So I'm going to type this at we'll go back to 128 and we'll redo this. All right. Now when I scale this down and zoom in and I make a change, okay, and then I swipe this, this is what 128 looks like, super small. And then if I were to back up, and now let's say I were to blow this up, so now this is bigger, make my change, 128. So it's dependent on the size of your object within the scene. And so this is where it's more of just thinking of it like the bigger the object, the more it has to wrap around. So the resolution is increasing based on that. So if I wanted to shrink this down now, so I have this detailed, 250, 264. I have this decent detail, and then I actually, if I want to scale this down, I'm actually going to go to Dynamesh and turn that off. And then I can have something a little bit more like that. Now, based on this coffin size, we need the skull to be kind of small, so. This is where actually we need to get a little clever. So I'm actually going to take this guy. So let's slide this over here. Maybe angle this a little bit, like it's thrown off here in the corner. Like here. Make this be down here. Something like such. And actually, what we're going to do, let's pull the skeleton. What up, McBubbles? Yep. Exactly. How are you doing? All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're actually going to save this. And let's go to... I don't feel like building a whole skeleton from scratch, especially since we only have 2 hours. And time moves pretty fast. And if you don't stop to think and appreciate it, you'll miss it. That was not the quote. I totally fumbled that. But we're going to go to Tool. And we're going to go to Ryan Kingsley Model that comes shipped with ZBrush. And I'm going to go ahead. And we're just going to literally delete all others. We don't need that. I don't even need a good chunk of this. Really, all I'm going to want to do is rip out a few bones and skeletons. That's it. So we're going to repurpose this, and we're going to auto group. And I'm actually going to go ahead and start selecting the things I want to keep. Keep that. I don't want those last 2 ribs. His ribs got busted. We're going to go ahead and grab all this stuff here. Maybe. Yep, sounds great. I'm going to go ahead and split hidden. Okay, I'm going to copy this, come back to my scene. I'm going to go ahead and paste this. Go ahead and put this in as bones. Bones. Boop. Come back over here, just delete all. I don't need that anymore. Let's go ahead and scale this down and make this fit within our scene. We could start really kind of getting ready to texture. Now, of course, we don't want this perfectly placed because that's not going to make any sense, right? So we're going to kind of come in here and set things down, and then we'll move them. So, for example, like this guy right here, let's solo this out. I'm just going to go ahead and maybe angle this down and kind of have this here. Perfect. Maybe this bone will be here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select these guys right here. Control Shift A is actually going to hide that other part. Mask this off. And now we're going to move this here. Kind of put that there just a little bit. Go. This head might be a little bit big, so let's actually shrink that down. And what we can do is we can actually distress the coffin a little bit, make it seem like it's been sitting there a while. Yeah, he looks like a chibi. All right, let's head down a little bit more. There we go. There we go. We'll have to punch some holes into it. They feed him a garlic sandwich and he died peacefully in a slumber. Yeah, there you go. That's a way. That's a way to think, man. That's a way to think. I love it. Okay, perfect. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and start. Let's start getting ready to texture some stuff. Let's go ahead and save this. Now let's see here. I had some grave scenes. Had something kind of cool like this that I was kind of digging. So maybe we'll break the coffin up a little bit. Just getting into those Halloween vibes. Scale that down just a little bit. Go ahead and mask this off. Actually going to bring that up just a little bit. Yeah, that's a little bit better. That's a little bit more proper. It seemed a little bit much. But you know what? Maybe we'll add a little bit of dirt in here. And kind of maybe weather this down just a little bit. What I want to do to sharpen this, though, let's actually go with the group by normals method. So let's go to polygroups, group by normals. It already looks like it's pretty grouped by normals, but I just want to do it again just to make sure everything is the way I want. Crease polygroups, crease down to subdivision level 2. I'm going to start dividing. Nope. Go back. I want to support this edge here manually. So let's actually go to ZModeler. Hover over here, insert edge loop. There we go. That's going to help keep that nice sharp edge. Beautiful. So I'm going to subdivide a few times. Yep, there you go. That'll keep that shape just the way I like it. And again, we don't actually, so I'll want a little bit of dirt in here. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come here to clay buildup and start building up on the surface. Bring a little bit of that in here. End up fixing some of this. Let's just get a good chunk of it built up. This will actually allow some intersecting to occur correctly. But then we can actually add a little bit of our own elements to the scene once we dynamesh it. And we could tether it down, maybe make it look like it had a hole punched in it or something. Because coffins, random fact, explode over a period of time. No matter how expensive that coffin is, it will combust at some point. Random fact. So, um, we're going to go ahead and kick this resolution up to 264. Let's build this up. Move some of this down. Get this here. Come through. What's the ZModeler topo tool named again? It is, you're using Z-Sphere. Here, I'll show you one more time. It's Z-Sphere Retopo. Or the ZModeler Retopo, sorry. The ZModeler Retopo is actually, it's just a setup. I misunderstood your question, sorry. If you were to take, let's say we have this guy right here. So you could set this up. It's in 2 locations. First one is if you go into the light box by hitting the comma key, go up to Brush, and then you go up to ZModeler. You actually have a ZModeler Retopo brush right here. The way you could set that up is by just the way this is set up. If you go to ZModeler, so BZM, hover over a face. The face itself does nothing. You just set that to do nothing. The edge itself is set to extrude, and it is set to snap to surface. And then the point itself is actually set to move with snap to surface as well. And then from there, the way you start that process is you actually pull up BIH for a single poly. You drag out your shape. Typically, you would split hidden or split unmasked points. And then you would actually start, you could turn ghost on if you wanted to. And then from there, your ZModeler brush will then start extruding. The way I showed, which was actually the Z-Sphere Retopo, which is the way I like to do it. It's very quick and effective. You go to Insert, you go to Z-Sphere, you position that wherever you want in the middle by move, scale, doesn't matter. Then you make sure you go to Draw, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go down to your Adaptive Skin, turn Destiny down and Dynamesh down to its lowest setting, then go to Topology, Edit, and then with Draw, you start tapping your points. And then wherever the small arrow is pointed to, that's actually where you can continue. So you make that connection, you make that connection, and this is actually how you would continue tapping your points really fast. And then if you get to a spot where you're just like, okay, yep, I like this. For example, boop, boop. So let's say you like this. Now the other way too is if you, let's say you're drawing out points and then you tap out here on accident, or you Control Z and then you retap again, and it gives you a line you don't like. So Control Z, tap out here in the ether, reapply over a point, and then connect those 2 points back together. And that's how you would go through and retopo very, very quickly. You can already see how fast this is. Once you're done with this, if you hit A, that will actually show how the topology is looking. And then if you come up to Adaptive Skin and make Adaptive Skin, that will actually give you your new surface. And just by default, display properties turns to double, so you can turn that off if you don't want double. So 2 ways. ZModeler Retopo, which again, that can be found up here under brush setting, ZModeler, double tap it, and then Z topology. Or you could just set it up with the ZModeler brush. Okay. Let's add a little bit more dirt in random places because let's be honest, it's not going to just be by the skeleton. So add a little bit more randomly in here. Rebuild that surface. So this doesn't look like it was connected on purpose. Now what I'm going to do to kind of make this look like it got a hole punched through or something like that, I'm actually going to go ahead and use the damn standard, and I'm actually going to cut into this a little bit more. Let's actually punch that up. We need higher resolution for this. So subdivisions for the win. Create a little bit of, or like fake it almost. Punch a hole. We'll quote punch a hole. Probably won't finish the full design today as far as texturing goes, but we'll get pretty close. Can't even see the vampire teeth. We need to fix that. Done. I'm like, wait, doesn't look like the vampire we started with. Also, with these bones here real quick, now I'm staring at them. Let's do a inflate. So I'm gonna put the gizmo out, hold control, and scale this up a little bit. And then I'm gonna go ahead and keep groups turned on, blur down to 1, and then I'm gonna dynamesh this. And I need to figure out the resolution, so I'm gonna hold picker and kind of see where it starts. That's gonna give me my 226. So let's actually go 352. It's still a little too low, so let's just scale that up. There we go. That's a little bit better. Yeah, that's better. Yep, that'll work. And then let's actually kind of take the move brush and bury some of this stuff in. You know what? Ooh, here we go. Story time. Let's make a steak real fast. And I don't mean the beef kind. So let's take a cylinder. Let's add a cylinder real fast. Everybody was wondering how he died. Stake through the heart will kill pretty much anybody. Take this. Let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. Steak. Yummy. Hold Alt. I'm going to bring this to a point. Actually, let's come there. Holding Alt will give me this kind of spike. I'm going to go ahead and actually knife curve it down at the bottom. We don't need a point. Actually, before we do that, Z modeler, insert, multiple edge loops, standard. There we go. Now I'm going to knife curve that bottom. Okay. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to make sure I mirror and weld this. And then I'm going to turn this around. There we go. Perfect. Turn around. Send this home. Now let's do a little bit of radial symmetry for this. So I'm going to take the trim dynamic brush. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I mirror and weld this one more time. I'm going to subdivide a few times, or actually let's just dynamesh it for the fun of it. Before we do that, let's just make sure we scale this up. So it looks like there's a little bit more to that. Right here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and Z modeler this. It's a really bad topology right now, but we're going to fix that here in a second. We're going to go to geometry, dynameshy. That's 2i. That's too low. Maybe this is just right. Perfect. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and go up to transform. Active symmetry. We're going to go on the y-axis with the radial because y is up and down. And I want to make sure that this is set to something like 6. Now we're going to go with our trim dynamic. Maybe we just do H polish. Maybe this is still a little low. We're just gonna polish this. Down a little bit. Yep. We'll take a little bit of clay. We're gonna build this up. Polish. Give it a little, and then some clay buildup. With a move brush and some AccuCurve. Look like we have a broken stick of sorts. It's going to be tiny, so it doesn't need to be perfect. There we go. Turn off Dynamesh, scale this down. Have to break that bone. It's a huge stake. Too perfect, though. It's looking better. All right, let's go ahead and save it. Steak. Now I'm hungry. All right. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of wood texturing, and then maybe some stone texturing. Let me see. Let's try the stone texturing first. We have thick skin. Let's turn thick skin on. Now, with thick skin, what's pretty cool is that you can apply a thickness, and depending on that thickness, you can actually get some really cool effects. I think I'm going to use the layer brush. Let's go up a little bit higher. Does that give me what I want? Not really. Let's try the doop 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 doop. Let's try the thick skin. Let's actually turn on render preview AO. It's giving me what I'm looking for. Kind of paint a little bit of this on there. Too much there. Let's go with 3. Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Right, Darren? Right? Welcome in, Darren. Oh, yeah. Something different. Yeah, exactly. Always in the mood for sculpting interesting stuff, I think. There we go. Now, the effect, too. Up close, you may not like the effect, or if it's not working for you. So this is easy enough to undo. We might add a little bit of noise to this as well. It still feels a little funky. I don't mind it so much. I don't want that warpage though. So I'm actually going to turn this off now. And let's actually do that. Let's go to noise. Now what we can do real fast is drop down to the lowest subdivision. Let's save it. And then because I have really good polygroups everywhere, I can actually go to Z plugin. Let's move this here. Go to Z plugin, UV master, turn off symmetry because I think I moved it off symmetry. Polygroups turned on, and then go ahead and unwrap. And now this will give me some good, it'll give me the UVs based on the polygroup. So actually, if I go to morph UV, turn this off for a second, you can see here my UVs for my cross. And now I can go ahead and subdivide this back up. And now we can go to surface. Let's go to noise. Now with this, let's actually recenter this. There we go. Actually, let's go to cancel. Let's go to lightbox. And let's actually find some sort of like noise texture. There we go. Now let's go to edit. Let's go to our UV. So now it's going to follow our UVs. We don't need super crazy amount of stuff. Let's go to color blend 0. We don't need that either. Stone texture to it. I don't need a whole lot. Yeah, that could work out. Actually, that can work out really well. Let's go ahead and say okay. And then if I go ahead and apply this, I now have some nice texturing that happens. There we go. It's actually not too bad. Let's go ahead and get some dirt texture on here next, and then we'll work on the wood itself. Dirt texture should be fun. Never too soon for spooky season, but you buy us. Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's getting close. Spooky season is just around the corner. I mean, let's see. This is how it works for me when it comes to like Halloween stuff. It's August. I'll say I got another month. Then September happens. I still have a month. Then October happens, and I'm like, what just happened? October's here, and then I feel like I'm rushing for stuff. So we don't want to do that this time. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start adding some fun little ground effects. So all I'm doing is using the standard brush with the spray stroke and alpha 64, and I'm just applying a little bit of this ground. You can go as big or small with this as possible. Again, we're going to be 3D printing this, so we probably want this to be exaggerated just a little bit more. So I'm actually going to back this up. And I'm actually going to go to Geometry, Dynamesh, kick up the resolution just a little bit. That's too much. So let's maybe try, yeah, something like that. Again, that's still a little too much. You can also do this with the clay buildup if you want just a little bit of random buildup. Drop down the intensity, and then we can have some areas that get built up more than others. And then what I like to do is kind of like how I like to texture human skin is I'll use like smooth peaks or something like that. So I'll come in smooth, and then we'll go smooth peaks. And that will kind of smooth out some of those areas, getting all the peaks taken down, but still keeping my depth a little bit. Down to dirt here. Let's up that resolution a bit. just a bit. Yeah, why not? Here's a question: does anyone actually know what the letters UV and ZBrush? Blah, 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 blah. You need a shovel. I do need a shovel. That's a great question, Chris. And I say Google it. Wow, I can't. Oh, I can't. What are they? It's a good question. And that's how often I use UVs. I know it means something. It's going to be so obvious as soon as I see it. All right, yeah, let's get a shovel happening so we understand this a little bit more. More context for real. Kinda for real. Okay, let's get that shovel built. Okay. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Trying to think of how I want to approach it. Obviously, we're gonna take a cylinder. All right, stretch that sucker out. There we go. Now what I want to do, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm actually going to use one of these. Okay, so we have these subfolders that we can actually activate this stuff with. I'm going to go ahead and control, drag this up, turn solo mode off. Let's go ahead and rotate this around like such. I'm actually going to scale this like such this way, but blow this up this way. So it compasses the handle. And then let's see, how do I want to do this? Bend curve is probably gonna be my best friend. No, that's actually not the one I'm thinking of. That one either. 1 second. Yeah, not that one. There was one I was playing with the other day. Trying to remember it now. Let's see. I think it was. It's not. This one actually might work. Nah, that's not the one I was thinking of either. Hold on 1 second. I don't. What was it? You've now caught me. We are now entering thinking mode. The former I was just playing with. We might just go with bend curve. Yeah, that's fine. Bend curve will be good. Bend curve will get it done a lot easier. It's one of those things. You're just like, this will work. And then let's actually come here. Maybe something like this. Not worried about the other side. We're going to go ahead. Come here and weld that. Yeah, there we go. That will be fine. Let's go ahead and make this official. Yep. Again, it's going to be small, so. Scale it up. Let's go here. Let's scale this down this way. I'm going to go ahead and just leave this alone for a second. We'll do a really kind of nasty block out and we'll fix it here in a second. I'm going to come here. Let's reconstruct this a little bit. Nope, too much. Turn on symmetry. And now we're going to go ahead and grab our move brush. Yeah, that should be fine. Let's go Z modeler. Delete our higher. Let's Q mesh. Home. Ooh, that was a terrible masking job. Let's go ahead and move this here. Fine. Let's get this point going. It's not quite what I had in mind. That's what I had in mind. There we go. That'll be a decent shovel head. Nah, I wasn't thinking extend. I was thinking of another way to bend it, but yeah. So like it doesn't mean unattach vertices or unwrap. My mind just thought, yeah. I was wondering if there was actually an acronym for it or not. Hey, what's up, Sad? But that's a clever leap. Yeah, yeah. That is a pretty cool leap. Okay. Now we want this to be somewhat believable. Somewhat. That's not working. Okay. Do. I probably didn't even need this funky little handle here, but tomato, tomato, potato, potato. What are you gonna do? Okay. Push that in there like such. And then what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna insert another cylinder here. And I'm gonna go ahead and go to crease and sorry, not crease, edge loop. Delete loops. Shrink this bad boy down. Extend it. Take this guy, taper it down. Gonna do one more time here. Actually, what's this? We'll just control. So if you control drag, you guys know the control duplicate trick. If I hold control and drag this out, that will also do the same thing. Now we can have a nice little taper. Taper it out like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add in a supporting edge loop. Here and here. Create some of that fall off. Yeah, that'll do the trick. It's shovelly enough. It's enough of a shovel. We can always fix this a little bit more. But for right now, this will be fine. Cover this edge. Whoops. Right there. Yeah, that's fine. Drag that up. Burp. Just a little bit. Actually, just bury this in. Just bury it in the handle for now. Perfect. Okay. I'm just going to merge all this together, actually. So merge down. always merge and merge. Perfect. There we go. Got something like that. Let's go ahead, go back to V1. Let's add that shovel right where we need it to be. Probably makes sense to stick the shovel maybe down in here like such. We'll fix the scale and proportion. That's a mighty huge shovel. So we'll fix the scale and proportion. It's really big. There we go. Maybe something like that. After your stream, we're gonna get scan data, right? As I was talking about. Are there any more Z streams today? AQ, Ashley Adams might go live later today. She usually goes live on on Wednesdays. But that's not until later. I think that's 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But check the calendar just in case. The calendar is where you will find a lot of this stuff. So let me actually pull that calendar up. No, okay. As far as today goes, there are no other streams today. I am the only one who's streaming today at the moment. So, but tomorrow we have a good lineup of streams. We have, let's see here. We got Mike Thompson showing up. Daisuke, you guys got to watch Daisuke. He does a lot of really awesome stuff, as well as Mike Thompson. And then we have Oscar Trejo as well. And then that's the lineup for Thursday. And then we also have Andre and Sakaki on Friday, as well as Ara. Looks like he's going at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Los Angeles. And then following the weekend ending with Anna Carolina. So definitely check those out. Okay, we are almost out of time here. So let's go ahead and finish this up just a little bit. As far as this goes, let me actually give some supporting edge loops, and then we're going to be calling it for the day. So we're going to go ahead and do this and that. Yes, I did. Yeah. We've been playing around with some time just because work has been getting busy, so I want to keep streaming on Wednesdays, but we did play around with time just a little bit, and it seems that this is a good time slot. I was going at 9 a little bit, but it was a little stretched of a time to come on here. So now from 10 to noon, it seems to be a lot better. Yeah, I've bounced around a little bit since I've gotten back, so I do apologize for the inconsistency, but this will be it. I promise. Okay, let's go over here. Let's insert this. I'm actually just kind of creating a small little bevel. There we go. Nice little bevel fall off. We can see our scene. It's looking pretty cool. Now, what I like to do is, even though this is just more for my eye, what I like to do is when there's symmetry turned on here, but sometimes I will like to just take everything and kind of rotate it off to the side a little bit so that's a little bit more interesting when I'm looking at it straight on. There's no need to have anything symmetrical at this point. So everything in itself can be nicer. Do you have any recommendations to practice things to build as a beginner? I still struggle with remembering how to approach new models. That's a great question, and honestly, doing something like what we're doing today, where you're just taking something that is familiar but not overly complex, and just you're building a muscle memory over time. So the best thing to do is take like an hour a day, if you can, and just sculpt something for you. Don't sculpt something to post on Instagram or Twitter or, wherever it is that you're like, don't worry about that. Like the skull, for example, like, you start building muscle memory over time. This is not the best skull in the world, but for the size and what we were trying to achieve, I know the shapes enough where I've built a lot of them, so I can now get something very close to what it is I'm looking for relatively quickly. So a lot of it is muscle memory. Speaking of which, actually, while we're talking about it, I want to just come here real fast. So take like an hour to yourself and um, just sculpt something, anything. It doesn't matter. Try to build a skull a day, or try to find objects that you see around the house. You know, like maybe a candle is interesting to you, and just try to sculpt a candle. But always come at it with base shapes. For example, let's say we wanted a candle here in the scene, right? So this, when you look at something like a candle, it's very just kind of a simplistic shape. So we start with the shape that makes the most sense. So we start with a cylinder, right? And then we say, okay, this will be a candle that's been worn out a little bit or used. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to scale this down. I'm going to stretch it up a little bit so it's just different. And then now what I want to do is I just want to, like, you know, maybe kind of push down a bit. So you see how the shape of the candle will be. So from here, I'll say I'll add in this line here, and then I'll push this down. And you just start kind of thinking about what that shape looks like, right? And then from here, if I just go ahead and hit D, you can already see that's dynamic subdivision, by the way. I'm starting to get that kind of shape. So I'm like, okay, great. And then I'll just add in some more little facets to just kind of hold its shape a bit. So say something like this. And then sometimes too, I'll repurpose stuff. I'll take the same exact shape, duplicate it by holding Control D, flipping it upside down, scaling this down a lot, stretching it up, sticking that in there, and I'm starting to get that kind of shape. Maybe I'll just inflate this just a little bit, or smooth that down. Maybe scale it just a little bit more. Maybe bring it up, stretch it. And then from here, then you could just start taking this shape and just manipulating it to your advantage. You know, this candle's a little bit worn, so I'm just going to go ahead. I have AccuCurve turned on. I don't need that. So now I'm going to go ahead and just start kind of warping this a bit, hitting D so I can look at it on a dynamic level. And then from here, yeah, just add your own little bit of flavor to it. Maybe say alpha off with dots. And then I'm going to just start kind of building up, you know, maybe the shape here. So just take objects around your house or things that you see. They don't always have to be full-fledged characters. And then just kind of start trying to replicate that thing. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get. And so you're like, okay, great. Here is my candle block out. And then you just add that to your scene. And building little dioramas like this, personally, is a great way to kind of get this experience. Because now you're going to say, like, okay, maybe we'll come here. And you're just going to start making this story what it is. So maybe this candle is going to live right here. And the more you do it, the better it becomes. So we'll say, yeah, let's try adding this right here. So yeah, that's my recommendation. And then ask other people, have them show, like, oh, hey, I'm trying to build this thing. How can I go about doing that? And then that can help you out too. And then sometimes too, say taking the same shape but just manipulating it slightly will cause just a little bit of difference. And then maybe we just kind of mirror and weld that so it's the same on the other side. Oh, this for some reason got off. There we go. So little things like that. I would say, yeah, attempt to just try little things. Yeah, not a problem. All right, so that is going to cover for today. Thank you guys very much. I'm going to go ahead and finish this, but this will be a 3D printable diorama that we'll probably be releasing for the newsletter. And I'm thinking about building a few more of these, so maybe we'll create like a whole little Halloween scene and stuff like that. So if there is something you guys would like to see, go ahead and like just, you know, chat it out, or we'll kind of come up with some fun stuff. Maybe we'll do like a pumpkin carving at one point. I'm in the Halloween mindset now, and I love that stuff. But anyway, that's going to cover it again. Guys, it's always a pleasure to be here. So 9 to noon, this is where we live. This is what I do every Wednesday, Pacific Standard Time. So come hang out. And yeah, we're just going to have a blast. Wood texture. I'll just real quick, I'll tell you what I am thinking is I'm probably going to open up this light box, go to texture, and there are lots of textures that ship with ZBrush. And I can tell you right now, there's a wood texture right about here. I'll probably do something like that, or I'll probably carve in something like this or like that. Ooh, that one actually kind of nice. We might do something like that. Anyway, that's going to be it. All right, I'm going to say bye officially for the third time. I'll catch you all later, and have a good one. See you next week. Bye, bye, bye.